Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, will the Patriots' response to the Wells report help or hurt Tom Brady? Plus, the Rockets force a Game 7 and the Cavs advance. Plus, could a 52-year-old Michael Jordan beat LeBron in one-on-one right now, today, at this moment? Crazy, huh? All this and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, which I approve of. Carrie champion Skip Bayless in Bristol, Connecticut.
I wish we had a show tomorrow.
Oh, well, okay. I don't know if Stephen A agrees with you. I surely don't. Stephen A, do you want a show tomorrow? Do you want to be here tomorrow in Bristol or no?
No, but also weekends don't apply to me. I'm always working.
He's always working. All right, he's in Chicago, still working from last night.
And unfortunately for the Bulls, that means that game counted, right?
It's unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
Unfortunate.
Yes, it is.
Well, again, speaking of, today on the show, the Clippers collapsed. The Bulls played as if, I know, it's so sad.
What a collapse.
The Bulls played as if they just gave up. It's all shocking. It's all shocking. We'll get to that in just a few moments. Also, though, Stephen A., this is interesting, and our folks at home might find it interesting as well. Skip Bayless is going to do something on the Twitter that he's never done before. He's going to do something he's never done before with Twitter.
I'm almost scared to find out.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Mr. Smith, because I'm a leader, I don't follow anyone. But today, just for you maybe, I'm going to follow my first person on Twitter. I've decided I'm going to do it later in the show.
Who will it be?
Hold it. It better not be no suspense there. If you're going to follow somebody, it had damn well better be me.
This one. It better. You're following him, right?
I will consider
I swear to you right now, if I'm not the first person you follow, I might walk off this show.
Yeah.
You got to be crazy. You better follow me.
Which is why we're going to do it at the end of the show. So we'll find out. We'll get to that in just a few moments.
You go ahead. You try and follow somebody else but me and watch what happens. You watch. You go ahead and do it.
I would follow you anywhere.
Except for Twitter. Yeah. But first, the Patriots have essentially said they are ready for battle. In the latest chapter of Deflategate, the NFLPA filed an appeal for Tom Brady, and the Patriots have created a website, context.com, to respond to the Wells report. The Pats claim the report's conclusions are incomplete, incorrect, and lack context, ignore scientific explanations for the drop in football's inflation and the use of different air pressure gauges. They claim the report ignores testimony given to investigators and misinterprets text messages between team employees that were meant to be humorous and not a plot to improperly deflate footballs. The rebuttal also says there is no evidence Brady preferred deflated footballs. Several key takeaways about Jim McNally we should also talk about. Pat say he didn't have enough time to deflate footballs in 1 minute and 40 seconds. But also the term deflator was used because McNally was often known as a guy who was trying to lose weight. Digest all of that. Skip Bayless.
Are you trying to bias this question, Carrie?
I just want everyone to digest it all.
I think you just allowed your own commentary.
Digest it all.
Your objective setup.
Objective. Huh?
Right?
Okay. What do you make of it, Skip Bayless?
Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to ask everyone out there in TV land, and you too, Mr. Smith, to please step back for a moment and let it sink in what just happened. One of the most respected owners in the National Football League, maybe the most respected owner, Robert Kraft, a man that you, Stephen A. Smith, often refer to on this show as Mr. Kraft. I also do. Mr. Kraft. Maybe the strongest, staunchest supporter of Roger Goodell of all the owners in the National Football League, just broke ranks, just went rogue, just broke all the NFL owners' rules, and he attacked the report commissioned by the commissioner, Roger Goodell. In effect, Robert Kraft just attacked the credibility, publicly attacked it, of Roger Goodell. So Robert Kraft just went Al Davis on Roger Goodell. He just went Mad Max on Roger Goodell. he just went website. He went website on Roger Goodell. I mean, they established a website for this 20,000-word report.
You're right.
Are you kidding me? Robert Kraft. No, this is no Jerry Jones we're talking about here. no knee-jerk, crazy owner who might just do any or say anything at any moment. No, this is a man who looks before he leaps. And he just leaped all over one Roger Goodell with a 20,000-word report written by the attorney who sat in on every interview conducted by Ted Wells and associates to come up with the Wells report. And Stephen A. Smith, this rebuttal says in the big picture that Ted Wells arrived at his more probable than not conclusion by taking all of these texts completely out of context, by connecting disconnected dots. The rebuttal also brings in the commentary provided by a Nobel Prize-winning scientist who completely debunks Wells' findings by pointing out that the Colts footballs were checked indoors near the end of halftime of the AFC Championship game. So obviously, in warmer climate, they had time to inflate. Warmth inflates. I thought that was fascinating, and I thought that held a lot of water. I took that one to my bank. I also like the explanations provided that Tom Brady increased his contact with Jastrzemski, the equipment assistant, because the guy was suddenly thrust onto such a hot seat that Brady's close to him, and he just wanted to make sure that he was surviving okay emotionally and psychologically. He was about to be under a lot of fire. I can buy that. That's consistent with Tom Brady's personality and persona that we've seen for years and years and years. Wouldn't you say Tom Brady's had a spotless reputation in the National Football League? Wouldn't you say he's as good a guy as we've ever seen come down the pike as far as how he treats people? I would. And I've talked to a whole lot of people about him. I've never heard of one discouraging word about Tom Brady. And I must say, it is certainly plausible that this McNally character did actually stop at the restroom to use the restroom for a minute and 40 seconds. Is that enough time to do your business and wash your hands and leave?
I don't know.
I say yes.
Okay.
I say yes.
You can do it in a minute 40?
I can do it in a break on this show.
Right.
I'd be just fine doing it in a break on this show. Now, to be completely objective here, though, I did not love the suggestion that McNally was referring to himself as the deflator because he's attempting to lose weight.
Yeah.
You know what I thought that was?
Yeah.
I thought that they were trying to parody the Wells report because it was often laughable to me also, the more I stepped back and looked at it.
Look at
so I'm thinking maybe that part of this was over-the-top parody of the Wells report. I'll give you that much. But in the end, all I know for sure is that the man that you respect more than any other owner, because you've often told me that, just declared war
Game on
the commissioner he has staunchly supported. Go ahead.
First things first, let me say that referring to yourself as the deflator because you're trying to lose weight is so damn laughable. It's ridiculous. It just shows.
I'll give you that
It just shows how desperate the lawyers were reaching to go there. Don't rush me. I just listened to you for 5 minutes. I'm gonna take my time. Relax.
It was actually 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
It wasn't.
Which was
it was
well
like
under
5
your
minutes
record
and 40
of 7
seconds.
minutes and 8 seconds.
Okay, you guys, come on now.
The difference between me and you is that you always interrupt me when I'm getting ready to make a point because you don't want people to hear my point.
Let the kind man in Chicago go. Go ahead, sir.
I'm not rushing. I got all the time in the world. Here's the deal.
Go ahead. Make jokes. Because you got no ammo to fire back.
Skip, you're absolutely right. I have absolutely no ammo because you're nitpicking. You're picking the report apart. Skip, I don't know what to say to you. You read the report, and initially you thought it was indictable against Tom Brady. Now you step back. Now you've stepped back, and then all of a sudden, you got all of these holes you want to poke in it after speaking to people close to Tom Brady. I understand it. I'm not going to knock you for that, Skip Bayless. I refuse to be moved by that. Because if you recall, long before the investigation was completed, even during Super Bowl week, in Arizona, I was sitting there looking you dead in your face and saying to you, don't tell me the quarterback knew nothing about the deflated footballs. Tom Brady lost me when he tried to pretend and feign complete ignorance as to what had transpired and what was going on. I told you back then, it was much ado about nothing to me. I didn't find inflated football to be a big deal. I didn't give a damn if it was a Nerf football he was throwing around. He stomped the Indianapolis Colts. They ultimately beat the Legion of Boom. There's nothing to talk about. They're Super Bowl champions, and he's worthy of it. The flip side to it, however, is when the man tried to sit there and tell me that he had no knowledge of deflated footballs when, in fact, he's the quarterback. I don't believe that. Now, if we want to debate the significance of the penalty, we also have to point to the fact that his lack of cooperation, at least perceived by the NFL league office, plays in part, at least, to the 4-game suspension they ultimately handed down. There's nothing to refute that. The fact of the matter is that you were not willing to turn over your electronic emails, text messages, your electronic information after they had asked for it, and that played a role in them handing down the suspension that they handed down. Now, there's one issue to dispute the deflated footballs and his specific role in all of that. But there's no disputing what they interpret as his lack of cooperation. And if they're saying that that's part and parcel as to why they handed down a 4-game suspension, last time I checked, it's specifically within the commissioner's right to make whatever ruling he deems suitable, because that is power bestowed upon him by the very owners he works for, which includes Mr. Robert Kraft, as well as the Players Association, via collective bargaining negotiations. And speaking of the Players Association, I like DeMaurice Smith, and I'm in no position to question his efficiency, his competency, or anything like that. I won't do that to that man. I respect him. I respect the way that he's going about the business of representing the players from what I know, and I will give him his due deference and respect on that in that regard. But I must confess to you that the Players Association is getting increasingly annoying to me, because once again, we see a line here where it says, given the NFL's history of inconsistency and arbitrary decisions in disciplinary matters, it is only fair that a neutral arbitrator hear this appeal, as opposed to Roger Goodell. Well, damn it, who the hell collectively bargained to give him that power? That was the Players Association. So you want to sit there and piggyback off of that and to try to engage in revisionist history or to do whatever it is that you feel the need to do so you can change what you collectively bargained for? I don't want to hear that. As it pertains to Mr. Kraft, Skip Bayless, here's the bottom line. The respect that I had for him, the Patriots being America's team, I still believe that. Him being America's owner, I still believe that. I love this man as an owner. I respect him profoundly. I have nothing negative to say about Mr. Kraft. But just because he's taken this position, I'm not moved by it. If I were him, I would do the same thing. He believes his franchise quarterback. He believes his head coach. He believes in his organization. And Roger Goodell's decision, indicting his organization, essentially labeling them cheaters, guys who skirt the rules, who try to circumvent their way around things that patrol this game, he has taken a personal affront with, and he should. He owns the franchise, and he doesn't believe that to be the case. I don't blame him one bit, but that doesn't mean he knows every little minute detail that Tom Brady engages in, nor that of Bill Belichick. I have no problem with Robert Kraft taking this position. He is standing up for his organization and the subordinates that work under the name of the New England Patriots that represent his brand. That is what an owner should do. I find no issue with it whatsoever, but I'm also not taking it to the bank that because he's going after Roger Goodell, that there's an elevated level of veracity that ultimately gets attached to the New England Patriots because of it. He believes what his quarterback and his coach is saying. I do not. Period.
Okay, do you realize that the man you respect so much just went website on the commissioner? Do you know how profound the impact of that is? Do you know how much he just broke ranks with all the other owners?
So what?
Listen, this is not a man who just goes off half-cocked. This is a man who had the entire week before the Super Bowl to conduct his own investigation. And what did he do? Moments after he landed in Phoenix, he marched right to the podium and said, I have an announcement to make. You're going to owe us an apology. That's how strong. Remember, he had been able to question all of these people. I'm sure Mr. Kraft had questioned Jastrzemski and McNally the week before the Super Bowl. He had lots of time to do that. He knew what he was speaking of, and he is digging in like I've never seen an owner dig in before.
Oh, please stop it.
The
fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, Skip
Show
Bayless,
me one.
You won't let me talk? Because I had a question for you. I'm trying to get you to answer my question. Can I ask you the question?
Yeah.
Did you not know all of this before when you read the Wells report and you came to the conclusion that it looked really bad for Tom Brady? Did Robert Kraft not address the media, not demand an apology, didn't dig in hard before you read the Wells report? Did that not happen?
Yes, but I told you yesterday. Yes, I read the report overnight. I read it late into the night trying to watch a playoff game, and we came in at 10 o'clock the next morning. I said, you know what, you got me. I still believe in Tom Brady, but there's such a preponderance of circumstantial evidence, including...
But that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm saying to you is, don't you give me Robert Kraft, because you knew what his position was before he went to this link. You knew he was coming because you knew he was going to stand up for the Patriots. But you knew he was going to stand up for the Patriots. You knew he was going to stand up for Bill Belichick. You knew he was going to stand up for Tom Brady. He had already demanded an apology. Skip, I'm not surprised by this. This does not move me. I fully expected this from Robert Kraft because he believes in his personnel. That doesn't mean that he knows definitively. He just believes Tom Brady. That's all this is.
Okay.
He's standing up for his guy.
He believes that Tom Brady is 100% innocent. If Brady had even hinted that, well, we did fudge it occasionally, there's no way he's doing this. He would just say, you got us, we're going to take our medicine here. You know,
All right, so look, so now that we know that they're fighting, let's talk about the next step in this. As mentioned, Brady is appealing the suspension. And the union has asked for a neutral arbiter, but they said, no, that's not the case. We will not give you a neutral arbiter. In fact, the commissioner says, I will hear the case. The case must be heard within 10 days. What do you make of it? They denied the request for a neutral arbiter, Skip Bayless. They're saying, nope, it's going to be Commissioner Roger Goodell. No, he wants you to go.
You sure? You want to go on this?
He wants you to go.
No, I'd like to go.
Oh, you want to go?
You don't get to talk enough on this show, so go ahead.
Oh, wait, but I do want to make a point, too, in that first topic. You went 5 minutes, and he went 6 minutes.
Aha.
So,
gotcha.
Oh, so...
Yeah. Kerry Champion,
your math is horrible. Don't you carry champion me.
Your math is horrible.
Don't you carry champion me.
He interrupted me 3 times.
You're okay.
That doesn't count.
Okay.
He interrupted me 3 times.
Hey, Brian Borg.
Here's the deal.
Brian Borg, let me know what that was. So Skip is 7 minutes then, and Stephen A is 5.
And by the way, the producers on First Take, we all know they favor Skip Bayless. Let's stop the nonsense here.
It's all right.
So this is true.
I'm not offended by it.
It's a fact.
I favor Skip Bayless too.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Roger Goodell, Skip Bayless, I love this move. It doesn't bother me at all. I actually love and applaud Roger Goodell for doing this. Because you know what Roger Goodell did? He reminded y'all. He stepped back and said, he pulled a Floyd Money Mayweather. He said, do you know who you're talking to? What? Who do you think you're messing with? I'm the commissioner. Collectively bargained, I have this power. Bestowed upon me by the owners, I have this power. Who the hell do y'all think y'all are coming at me like this, thinking that, you're going to demand a neutral arbitrator and all of this other stuff? No, it's perfectly within my right to hear the appeals. And since y'all are talking smack about me anyway, and it does not appear as if I can win in a court of public opinion, why waste my time trying to sit there and glad hand and ingratiate myself with you folks when it's clearly all-out war? You want to know what war is about? Let me teach you what war is about. War is about winning at all costs. War is about making sure that your points are made emphatically and that you recognize who you're dealing with. And it's not just about beating you. It's about beating you down and making sure you understand just who the hell you are dealing with. I am the commissioner of the National Football League. The power bestowed upon me was given to me by the owners, including Mr. Kraft, and oh, by the way, by the Players Association, who got schooled during collective bargaining. Why else would I have a 10-year deal? Not only did I get some of the stipulations that I wanted, but I got a 10-year deal, which gives me cost certainty, which facilitated the NFL making billions, which is why I raked in $44 million in 1 year. And oh, by the way, since 2006, I've made $150 million. You better fall back. That's what Roger Goodell is saying. So now you have to deal with him. And I love it. I love the fact that he stuck it in their face like that, because guess what? If you're an owner, don't give him that power.
Right.
If you're the Players Association, don't collectively bargain for him to have that power. Period.
Listen,
that's what this is about.
Stephen A., it just came across the wires. We got a quote exactly from Roger Goodell. You better fall back. Your turn. As Roger Goodell just said, you better fall back. So,
Seriously?
No.
Oh,
Come on.
I didn't know. My turn?
Yes, your turn.
Wait. Can I have my camera?
Oh, no.
Maybe my red light isn't working. Oh, there it is.
There you go, sir.
I was watching my watch. To your Mayweather point, to start off with, Roger Goodell is not fighting a one-armed man in this battle. Sorry to tell you that. Now, back to your point. You could be right.
He is.
You could be right about how you read this. I think you're wrong. Obviously, one of two things just happened. Either Roger Goodell is digging in, as you say, or he's backpedaling. Either he's attacking or he's backing off with his latest move. Now, I'm with you. Last night when I first heard this, I sat back and said, man, here he comes, swinging back with all of his might. And I'm thinking, he's telling them, I'm going to be the one to listen to your sorry, laughable rebuttals. And I'm going to be the one to laugh back in your face and tell you, nope, the penalties stand as originally announced. Tom Brady, you will serve 4 games. That's what I originally thought. Then I woke up this morning and I had a second thought, Stephen A. Smith. It dawned on me, now that Tom Brady has hired Jeffrey Kessler, now that there's a little nuclear buildup on his side as he prepares to ultimately take Roger Goodell to court and sue him for defamation, as Jonathan Vilma successfully did in the Bountygate controversy. Now that that's going on, I'm wondering if Roger Goodell isn't a little panicky right now. I'm wondering if he decided to hear the appeal so that he could say publicly, you know what, guys? You're right. You have a good point there, and you have a good point there, and Tom, you got a great point over there. You know what? I'm going to reduce your suspension. He might reduce it all the way to just 1 game, because we know that he already took a bite out of Tom Brady's image and reputation until death do him part. But maybe he reduces it to 1 game, and he says, you know what? You've been a good guy, you know, blah. He says all the right things publicly because he's afraid that Tom Brady is going to maybe ruin him in court. Because if this thing does get to court, all of a sudden, a Roger Goodell who has been on the hot seat post-Ray Rice could be back on the hot seat again. Because these men, Kraft and Brady, they're not just attacking the National Football League, they're attacking Roger Goodell's credibility. So maybe he's trying to soften Tom Brady's stance and his resolve to sue. Maybe he's trying to take the sting out of Brady's counterattack right now. That's what I think might be going on here.
First of all, I wouldn't have a problem at all if Roger Goodell reduced Tom Brady's suspension to 0 and rendered it non-existent. I'm of the mindset that Tom Brady has meant too much to the game of football. He's never been involved in any kind of incident where, you know, his integrity has been in question or he needed to be impugned in any way. I think that one could argue, based on his reputation, that all of this is excessive. Remember, I agreed with the suspension from the perspective of the combination of the Wells report and Tom Brady saying that he knew nothing about it, when I absolutely positively don't believe that, combined with players in the league saying this is a big issue. It's a competitive advantage former players, present players taking that position. But my original position is that this was much ado about nothing, because I don't give a damn if he was throwing a Nerf football. People still had to get open. People still had to catch the ball. People still had to hold on to the ball. The defense still had to be played. There was coaching and all of that other stuff going on. The Patriots are legitimate champions. That's the way that I looked at it. That's the position that I maintain. But when we bring up the issue of Tom Brady's integrity, Roger Goodell himself was on the record calling Tom Brady a wonderful ambassador for the game of football. And this was just approximately last year. So how do we go from that to an instantaneous 4-game suspension? At the very least, if we're talking about Tom Brady being a first-time offender, because there's nothing else on his resume or his record that would indicate there's more than this, I would say to you that's the biggest point that can be made to justify a reduction, if not a flat-out eradication of the suspension. Because this is Tom Brady that we're talking about here. He has been a wonderful ambassador of the league. You have already tarnished his reputation. What more do you want to do to him? We want to see Tom Brady play. So I wouldn't have any opposition to that. Just don't try to base it on this notion that he knew nothing about deflated footballs. Base it on his reputation. Base it on a mistake. Base it on the fact that this guy's reputation otherwise has been impeccable, and he deserves a mulligan. Tell me that, but don't tell me that he didn't have any knowledge whatsoever of the deflated footballs.
So in the end, you're starting to agree with my position. Maybe Goodell is not on the attack. Maybe he's trying to soften the blow a little bit here.
No, I'm not saying that I agree with that at all. I'm saying that I would like for that to be the case. I don't believe that to be the case. I stand by what I think it is, but I would like to see Goodell take the stance that you're taking. I would like to see Goodell sit up there and say, you know what, deflated footballs or no deflated footballs. We're talking about Tom Brady here, who has been a wonderful ambassador for the game of football, who has gone about the business of doing everything right. He's universally respected. He made a mistake. We're going to move forward from this, but it better not happen again.
Okay, you just put in the magic words. He made a mistake. Can I have the last word here?
You can have the last word.
We gotta go. Just remember this. No way will Tom Brady even accept a reduction to 1 game. He is telling people close to him he is 100% innocent. He had zero knowledge this was going on. He is prepared to fight this to the bitter end, and it may get very bitter.
Then let's go to war.
You can reduce it to 1 game, but that's still that suggests that you are guilty. You know, and he's not going to accept that he is guilty even 1 game's worth.
Then let's go to war, because I don't believe for 1 second he didn't know anything.
So the Rockets trailed as many as 19 points before finishing the game on a 49-18 run over the final 14-plus minutes, I'd say. Houston shot 54% over that span, with 8 of their 13 as three-pointers. The Clippers, meanwhile, couldn't buy a shot, shooting 19% over the same time span, about 14-30. They missed 15 of their final 16 shots. It's just the 3rd time in NBA history that a team playing at home with a chance to clinch the playoff series blew a double-digit lead entering the 4th quarter. It was a collapse, as Stephen A. mentioned earlier. So break it down for us, my friend. What happened?
The Clippers choked. Let's call it what it is. This team just completely collapsed. Skip, I watched every moment of this game. I didn't miss a moment. I was shell-shocked at what I witnessed. I could not believe it. To have a 19-point lead, if you remember, I predicted, and boy, do I owe an apology to the Houston Rockets. I thought they were done. Not only did I predict they would lose this game, I thought they would get stomped. I thought they would get beat down. And they were getting beat down when the Clippers were up 89-70 with about 2 minutes left, 2 minutes and 15 seconds left in the 3rd quarter. And then they had a 9-0 run to close the quarter, and then after that, they outscored the Clippers 40-15. Over a span of 10 minutes in the 4th quarter, the Clippers had 10 points. They couldn't buy a basket. They couldn't hit a shot. They seemed, literally, they got to a point where they were scared to shoot. You had Chris Paul having to try and do everything. You had Blake Griffin, who suddenly got exposed because, once again, he didn't do much in the 4th quarter. And it was one of those situations, Skip, where Blake Griffin, he overpowers a lot of guys. But what the Rockets started doing when Kevin McHale said, look, we're minus 23 with James Harden on the floor anyway, even though he hit all 11 of his free throws, he was shooting like 5 of 20 from the field. He put him on the bench in the fourth quarter, and the second unit, led by Corey Brewer, led by Josh Smith, who dropped 4 3-pointers, even though he actually started. When you look at what he was doing, I mean, Josh Smith stepping back, shooting threes, Corey Brewer shooting threes. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Dwight Howard grabbing every rebound under the sun. He finished with 21 for the night. I just looked at the Clippers, and their half-court offense was atrocious. You look at Blake Griffin, backing guys down, trying to outmuscle them. You got guys like Pablo Prigioni sneaking in from behind to strip him. Jason Terry was doing the same thing. They were collapsing on him. He didn't know where anybody was. And it was about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. It was almost as if no one else were allowed to think about shooting. It was that bad. But in the end, here's what it comes down to. Number one, my apologies to the Houston Rockets. Completely slept on them. They deserve credit. Kevin McHale deserves a boatload of credit. I mean, a league MVP candidate in James Harden, one of the league's leading scorers. You bench him in the fourth quarter. Right. You go with Brewer and Josh Smith. That's a courageous move, man. Yep. And that's what Kevin McHale did. And Brewer and Josh Smith and those boys came through for him. They have now forced Game 7. And now I don't think we should be looking at Chris Paul because, again, he is what he is. Blake Griffin is the guy that has to step up and get it done, along with the rest of the crew, and dare I say even the great Doc Rivers. He's the master motivator. He's one of the top 2 coaches in the game. But the bottom line is that he's got a crew that can legitimately contend for a title. You don't go up 3-1 on the Houston Rockets and lose a game like you just lost in Game 6 and don't answer the bell for Game 7, and your reputation doesn't get stung by such a collapse. Doc Rivers has to step up too. Whatever buttons he's got to push to get these boys ready for Game 7, they have got to be ready, because if not, all the naysayers about the Clippers and all the chances they had of snatching L.A. even remotely from the claws of Laker Nation, and I'm not saying they were doing it, I'll just say remotely, that will even go out the window if they blow this Game 7. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the line for the Clippers because of how they collapsed last night. It looked like a straight-up choke job. They've got to make amends for this.
Not sure they will. Last night, I also watched every last dribble of this game because I couldn't turn it off. The Clippers turned back into the Clippers of old, the Clippers that Kerry Champion can't stomach, the other team, the second team in Los Angeles. Yep. They still are that, and maybe deep down in their psyche, they still see themselves as sort of the stepchild of Los Angeles. This all started, to me, in Game 5 in Houston, where I think we both thought that the Clippers would close them out, and the Clippers flat out quit in that game at halftime, to me. They fell behind 63-48 to a team that was led by James Harden, who had some sort of virus or some sort of, I'm not sure how bad it was, but there was iffy whether he was even going to play in the game, and he had a triple-double. And all of a sudden, this Rockets team started to gain a little life and a little hope and maybe a little bit of momentum, though you couldn't see it for almost 3 quarters last night. They still think now they can beat this team when the chips are down. And once again, what I've been telling you all along about this team reared its ugly head last night. There's something missing deep in the psyche of this team. I don't know what you want to define it as, basketball character, basketball intangibles. It's something that swirls around the 2 superstars, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. And to your point, Stephen A., in the fourth quarter last night, Blake went 0 for again. That's an 0 for 5. He had one of those games against the Spurs in the previous round where he just got blanked in the fourth quarter. He's too good to get blanked in the fourth quarter. I'm sorry, you can't come up with a big goose egg. And if you're Blake Griffin, and we saw him score at will, and I agree with your strategic point about how the Rockets started to play him, but still, he's Blake Griffin, and there are nights when I think he is the best player in basketball. And Chris Paul. Here's the great irony of what happened at the end of the game last night. Do you realize after trailing by 19 late in the third quarter, if Chris Paul at the buzzer hadn't hit a one-legged off-balance three-pointer, they would have lost by 15 instead of 12. Think about that. They lost by 12. I don't know how that's possible. At home, to blow that big a lead, they didn't just lose at the buzzer by 1. They lost by 12 that should have been by 15. But Chris Paul hit a 3, and at that point he was 1 out of 6. So he wasn't much better than Blake. 0 for 5 Blake. Chris was 1 for 6, but he went up 2 for 7 because he hit just an out-of-the-back-end shot. Yeah, at the buzzer that cut it down to 12. That's just pathetic, and it's something's wrong with the team, and it's not Doc to me. It's not. I love Doc. I think he's right there with Coach Popovich's 1-2-2-1 as the two best coaches in basketball. I don't know what else he can do. He doesn't have the luxury of the bench that Kevin McHale went to, because like a Jason Terry, Stephen A., he just let Jason Terry run the show down the stretch in place of James Harden. Now, that, like you said, that is gutsy, man, because you're risking that you might lose. You remember what you said at the first of the series? Maybe James Harden was pouting a little bit because he didn't get the MVP. Will he pout now because he didn't play him down the stretch of such a monumental, epic comeback?
They asked
for
him
the Rockets
about that. He said, I just made a gamble. He said, I didn't care. He made a gamble.
We did, and it worked.
We both love Doc Rivers.
Yep.
We think he's phenomenal. We think he's a master motivator. We understand what he did in winning the title in Boston. You can't get around that. But remember, he was coaching the Orlando Magic when they were up 3-1 on Detroit in 2003 when he had Tracy McGrady. They lost that series. Remember, he was up against Orlando in 2010. He lost that series. Remember, he was up 3-2 in the NBA Finals when the Lakers came back and beat him. He's lost closeout games before. And so when you look at it from that perspective, again, the greatness of Doc Rivers is not to be questioned. But in the interest of fairness, we have to point out that there are times when the job hasn't gotten done in terms of closing the deal. And he's going to have to do it this time around. And it's a little bit different because, again, you questioned whether he had the right team in Orlando because he had Tracy McGrady, but he didn't have much else because Grant Hill was never healthy. You're up, even though you lose a 3-2 lead, you went up 3-2 in the finals, but you are going up against Kobe and Gasol and them, and you had to go back to L.A. for 2 games in the Staples Center because of the 2-3-2 format in the NBA Finals. We understand that. But the flip side to all of that is that these are the Clippers. And when you're up 3-1, understand what transpired. You gave away Game 5. Because you knew you had Game 6 on your home floor. So the priority and the level of urgency that needed to be there, Doc Rivers admitted, wasn't there. And when he admitted that it wasn't there, he pointed the finger at himself because he said he needed to do a better job of getting them ready. Fair enough. Always appreciate him manning up because that's the kind of man he is. Great man. Then he went to Game 6. You got a 19-point lead in the third quarter. You are running them out of the building. Jamal Crawford's hitting shot. J.J. Redick's hitting shot. Matt Barnes is being the antagonist that he is. DeAndre Jordan hit 4 of 6 free throws. A miracle. 66% from the free throw line. Okay. And Blake Griffin, along with Chris Paul, were en route to having about 28 points at that particular juncture. We talk about the third quarter. Okay. And then somehow, some way, there's no way to get around this collapse to stop the bleeding. J.J. Redick can't get a shot. Matt Barnes can't get a shot. Jamal Crawford can't take a shot. But it's all about Blake Griffin and Chris Paul, and they're not making it. And you're talking about people thinking that the eradication of the curse had arrived because the Clippers had never even advanced to the Western Conference Finals. All of this hype and hoopla surrounding this buzz surrounded this team. Y'all have this kind of collapse, and James Harden isn't even on the floor when it happened.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Right.
Let me tell you something. They have to. Look, they better win Game 7.
Go ahead.
They better win Game 7.
Make it. Better wrap.
Last point. I was stunned by 2 things that happened here. It wasn't just that they were missing shots. They missed 15 of their last 16 shots to the Clippers. They weren't just lip-out shots like they're snake-bitten. But you're right. But on the shot missing, they were awful misses. The quality of the misses was high, like awful, like Brick City. Lob City went to Brick City.
They were
That's
nervous.
What happened. And you're right. On defense, I rarely seen an opposing team get so many easy baskets. Where they quit was defending, because this team can defend when it feels like it. It did not feel like it until it was way too late.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
It was the scoring of Matthew Dellavedova and the Cavs bench that led Cleveland to an easy win. Delly led the Cavs in scoring with 19 points for the first time this season and made as many shots as LeBron in less than half the attempts. Delly, lending the king a hand, did a great job on Derrick Rose. In the final two games of the series, wind guarded by Dellavedova, Rose scored just 4 points. In the final two games, again, 21-point loss is the worst home loss in franchise history when facing elimination. Stephen A., you said it appeared as if the Bulls quit. Why is that?
Because they looked absolutely horrid, number one. They looked lethargic, number two. Number three, I mean, they literally looked as if they had already made reservations for the offseason, because the last 3 quarters, Skip Bayless, they scored 42 points. The last 3 quarters, 13 points in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, and 16 in the third quarter. They couldn't hit Broadway if they were standing right on it and it was empty. They couldn't hit anything. It was that bad. And when you know you can't score, then it demoralizes you. Derrick Rose went into the locker room. He came out, seemed disinterested in coming back into the game. Jimmy Butler was just jacking up shots. I thought that of all the things he did to help his stock, and I'm still in support of Jimmy Butler getting his money. He did not make a good showing for himself last night, hitting just 8 of 22 shots from the field. For some reason, Tom Thibodeau, to me, it was the worst game I've ever seen him coach. I couldn't believe it. They were taking about 14 seconds, Skip, to get into their offensive sets. Literally, like 12 to 14 seconds to get into their offensive sets to finally run a play. You can't score. Your best shooter is Mike Dunleavy Jr. No picks were being set for him. Nobody was getting him open. No one was prioritizing getting him the ball. And then to make matters worse, Skip, who's their best offensive player on the front line? It would happen to be that former Los Angeles Laker, Mr. Pau Gasol, who came to Chicago just for this moment. Do you know that he was sat on the bench for about 9 minutes or what have you, while they couldn't score, while they couldn't score a bucket to save their lives? Tom Thibodeau wouldn't bring him off the bench. And I'm literally sitting across from Pau Gasol, Skip, at this moment, and I'm watching every missed shot. He's going just like this when the Bulls missed a shot. And then he's scowling at Tom Thibodeau. And then Tom Thibodeau finally brings him off the bench, Skip, and Pau Gasol just rolled his eyes at him and just looked at him and then walked to the scorer's table and then sat on the scorer's table and went like this because he couldn't believe he wasn't in the game. I understand that Pau Gasol is a defensive liability. But when you can't score, Skip, the hell with Joakim Noah being on the floor. You get Taj Gibson, you bring him in there. You bring him in there with Pau Gasol, and you do whatever is necessary to put points on the board so you can try to make a run. This is not what Tom Thibodeau did. And when you consider all the noise that has been made about him, this being his last series, because if they lost, he's going to be fired, you can book it. One of the things they pointed out was that the folks in Chicago, the Sam Smiths and everybody else here who cover this team on a daily basis, who know them a hell of a lot better than us, talk about how Ron Adams, the former elite defensive assistant for Tom Thibodeau, was let go. And Paxson and Gar Forman were like, this is a perfect opportunity for you, coach, to bring in an offensive-minded assistant coach, somebody to handle the offense. Tom Thibodeau said, no, I'm running this show. I'm not doing anything. So he controls everything. He wanted the offense. Well, he had it. And it did absolutely nothing to try and save this season. So he's done. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some wholesale changes that are being made, because The Chicago Bulls that we know and love displayed no fight in themselves whatsoever. They embarrassed themselves last night. And they got embarrassed by the Cavs.
I agree they got embarrassed. I do not for a second understand your premise that they quit in this game. Could you please explain? Because Pau Gasol had a pulled hamstring and probably shouldn't have been on the floor to start with. He said he was just gutting it out because it was do or die. And I think Thibodeau watched him operate, or his lack of mobility, and just said, he's useless. Take him out.
Chip.
And in the second half, Pau Gasol played 9.5 minutes and scored 0 points. And Derrick Rose, I don't know what he was doing. You're always getting on my guy in Chicago, Jay Cutler, for riding the bike at halftime of the AFC.
I don't know what Derrick Rose was doing either.
He's over there riding the bike half the time. He played 17 minutes in the second half and scored a total of 2 points. So they just couldn't score the basketball. Meanwhile, neither could LeBron James. And LeBron didn't have his guy Kyrie, obviously tweaked his knee and was sitting. And again, the Cleveland Cavaliers scored a total of 36 points in the second half. That's 72 for the game. That's not up against a defense that quit. Because if you're going to hold a team, LeBron's team, to 36, and the only guy you can't control is Matthew Dellavedova, are you kidding me? He scored 16 in the second half. So, as I tweeted, Delly turned the Bulls to jelly, because he did, because they're looking around like, he made another shot? He made another shot? What is this all about? It was like it wasn't fair.
Let me clarify. When I'm talking about, I'm not saying they didn't care. I'm saying they were so demoralized by their own ineptitude. By the time the fourth quarter arrived, they had nothing left. They had nothing left. That's what I meant. Okay, I didn't mean to say that, they quit like we don't care. I'm saying they got demoralized. They got their heart snatched from them.
That's different than quit to me.
I mean, okay, I got it. To you. To me, there's different forms of it. You can quit because you don't care, or you can quit because you're so demoralized you feel hopeless and helpless that there's nothing you can do. And I thought that the latter is what I meant about them in Chicago. Derrick Rose got outplayed by Matthew Dellavedova. Not only did he get outplayed by Matthew Dellavedova, all of this stuff that folks were talking about, how we're seeing the same Derrick Rose. Oh, no, the hell we ain't. Derrick Rose couldn't shake Matthew Dellavedova's defense. Matthew Dellavedova was D'ing him up.
I know, but listen, he D's up a lot of people. He's pretty good.
I know that, but I'm just talking about this is Derrick Rose. So clearly, the fact that he did it against Derrick Rose really speaks volume. Not trying to take anything away from Dellavedova. He played one hell of a game. He was incredibly impressive, and he made a name for himself because he will hit open shots, number one, and he plays hard and he defends.
Yep.
He was nightmarish for Derrick Rose. But that hamstring, I'm telling you, at a courtside seat, I'm watching Pau Gasol. That hamstring was not bothering him. This dude wanted to play. Tom Thibodeau did not pull him off the bench.
Okay.
And Joakim, no.
Wait,
Go ahead.
Are you suggesting maybe that Thibodeau quit on his team because he knows he's on the way out?
No. Okay. I just think that he did. I just think it wasn't his finest night as a coach. That's all. I'm not going to accuse him of that. I don't think it was because we know Thibodeau cares. That's all he cares about is basketball. I mean, he's a coach. I mean, he's committed, fixated on it. But the point is that he had a bad night because there were a bevy of things he could have tried that I thought he did not. And it wasn't his finest hour, particularly when all the speculation was that it's going to be his last hour. And you would expect more from him. And it didn't come. And in the end, the bottom line is this: there will be a new coach, and there should be new players, because what they have isn't good enough, period.
I'll buy that.
You'll buy that. You'll take that to the bank. Meanwhile, the Cavs await the winner of the Wizards-Hawks series. More than 1,400 registered voters, 77% of them believe that Michael Jordan is the greatest NBA player of all time, and 34% said MJ would beat LeBron James one-on-one right now at the age of 52. You hear that? 52 years old. They still think he can beat LeBron James right now. That's 34%. 54% say no, LeBron would win the matchup if it was one-on-one. Here's the kicker, though, and we're talking about a specific age group. Look at this age group. They feel that if you're between the ages of 30 and 45 years old, 48% believe Jordan would take LeBron one-on-one. Right. So, Skip, Did the American people get it right?
The 34%.
The 34%. I mean, and what we're saying is, can he right now, at 52 years old,
Right here, right now.
beat LeBron one-on-one? I mean, and beyond. Come on.
You know, Stephen A.
Oh
Smith,
gosh, don't do this.
You know, he just might.
Don't do
He
this.
just might be able to.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to explain why he might be able to in just a moment. But allow me to either qualify or disqualify myself, because you know, Stephen A. Smith, there is no bigger Jordan fan than this guy right here. I did cover him when I was the columnist for the Chicago Tribune, and he was at the end of his Bulls run. And I must admit, I got along with him better than most in the media did. Michael could be a little rough on the media, a little tough, a little distant, a little finicky.
Sure.
But I did get along with him, so maybe I'm not objective there. But I also feel like I have insight into what made him the greatest competitor in the history of sports. So if right here, right now, Michael would stop smoking his cigars,
Okay.
change his diet up, if you gave him, I'm gonna say 2 months.
Okay.
2 months
Okay.
into the off season, okay?
No cigars, diet change.
To get himself back into some semblance of basketball shape. Not that he ever falls completely out of shape, but I'm talking about getting into one-on-one, going up against LeBron kind of shape.
Okay.
2 months is all I would need. I would train him, actually.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that on intangibles alone, we're talking about the mentally toughest superstar in the history of sport going up against, head-to-head with a man in LeBron James whose mental toughness has sometimes been a little in question in the biggest moments. This would be the biggest moment of LeBron's life. He would be up against his idol. And trust me, he'd start to shake a little bit. His palms would start getting a little wet as the game got a little closer and tighter in the end. And we both know that in LeBron's advancing NBA years, he's not the explosive athlete he once was. He now has to labor to be spectacular, when in the past he did it effortlessly. So I'm not sure. If we want to talk about LeBron 8 years ago versus 52-year-old Jordan, that might be tough. But this guy who's a little more ground-bound, he's not quite as quick as he used to be, obviously very strong, but so is Michael Jordan. I say that on this alone and this alone, Michael Jordan could figure a way to beat a LeBron James who just might crumble under the pressure to beat his idol, the greatest basketball player in the history of life.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we got this right.
Yes.
2 months, just give him 2 months, no cigars,
No
a
cigars,
diet change,
yep.
and trained by you specifically, and just with heart and head, he'd be able to do it. Those
Correct.
are the intangibles.
Yep.
So
that makes those 34%. That's a high number.
So
that
you
makes
agree.
them correct.
Okay.
Let me tell y'all something. Michael Jordan is my man, my brother. I love him dearly. He's the greatest player.
Yeah, here we go.
He's the greatest player who ever lived. I don't care about Bill Russell's 11 championships. Michael Jordan is the greatest I've ever seen in my life. Having said that, not only are you wrong, but I feel like I owe the viewing public an apology on behalf of First Take for us even broaching this subject. It's disgraceful. Father Time is undefeated. It's not about training. It's not about all of this stuff. It's ridiculous. We're talking, you know, this is why you can praise LeBron for the next 5 years. This is why if I'm him, I could never talk to you. He's the best player in the world. We're not talking about Matthew Dellavedova or you know, somebody, some no name on an NBA squad. We are talking about an individual universally recognized as the greatest basketball player on the planet Earth right now. And you're telling me that a 52-year-old...
That's what he's telling you.
...who is, regardless of his greatness, a 52-year-old Michael Jordan, who's remarried, beautiful, gorgeous wife, new father.
Stay relevant.
Hold on, wait a minute. The cigar. Listen, Skip. Now, let me ask you a question. Can you erase the cigars and, you know, the age and attrition and all of that stuff in 2 months, we can erase that. You can erase that.
Yeah.
So in other words, Skip, I can go ahead, Skip, and eat all the crunch berries that I want for the next year.
Yeah.
But give me a month or 2 months, and you know what? We can eradicate what I did to my body for the previous year. It doesn't work that way.
Well, it depends how much you ate.
Well, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. I'm just saying. You can laugh about it all you want to. Go ahead, giggle all you want, Kerry. The bottom line is this. The bottom line is this. LeBron is the best player in the world.
It's ridiculous.
And you're saying that a 52-year-old man who hasn't played in the NBA in a decade, that's just disrespectful.
It's disrespectful.
That's just disrespectful, man.
It's disrespectful.
It really is.
It really is.
Point number one. LeBron James, for these 6 games he played against the Bulls, shot 3 for 28 from the three-point line. That is a total of 11%. LeBron James is a pretty awful outside shooter. And if you're going to play one-on-one, occasionally against a very strong man and a very savvy basketball player, Michael Jordan, you're going to feel like you got to go ahead and pull up and shoot those threes, shoot those longer shots. I don't know if we would count three-pointers as three-pointers, but if we did, LeBron would be tempted to fall back on the J way too often. I'm sorry, under pressure, we have seen, and this would be the most pressure LeBron James would ever feel, especially if we televise this. This would be bigger than Pacquiao and Mayweather. We would be there.
Yeah,
right?
we would have
I'm not talking about LeBron.
Hold on.
I'm talking about 52 years old, Father Time. Stop it.
I'm not going to stop it because I am talking about a LeBron James who, in some of his biggest moments in his past, had 2 of the biggest superstar meltdowns in the history of sports, against the Celtics and then against the Dallas Mavericks in the finals. You know it and I know it. LeBron is very susceptible to psychological warfare. Nobody can play dirty, quote unquote, verbally more than Michael Jordan. If LeBron James was whining about the trash talk of Noah crossing the line the other day, really? Of Joakim Noah, he crossed the line. He can't do that to me. Do you have any idea how Michael Jordan would annihilate LeBron James with trash talk that would go over the line? LeBron would be a puddle by the end of this competition. Trust me.
He's not listening anymore.
Well, it's correct. He doesn't want to hear it because he dug in prematurely once again.
I'm embarrassed that we're discussing this.
Nope.
Let's move on.
I have a suggestion. You should follow LeBron on Twitter. What do you think?
Now that I would think
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got a little, if he wins the chip, maybe.
Yeah, think about that.
Because this would be a tough one to win. This would be all
I mean,
on LeBron.
why stop there, Skip Bayless? Why don't you sit there and say Bill Russell is ready to outplay Dwight Howard? Why stop at Jordan and LeBron?
Is he?
Father Time clearly doesn't matter to you.
Did I say
Age
that?
and attrition clearly doesn't matter to you.
And
Birth certificates clearly don't matter to you. Why don't you say Bill Russell can beat Dwight Howard?
Is that you thinking?
Bubble up above my head. Do you realize Michael Jordan once talked about watch me play at 50. I think he had serious thoughts about playing in the NBA at age 50. So at 52...
Bob Cousy can outplay Chris Paul. Why don't you say that? Why don't you say that?
That's all you got?
Go.
Is that all you got?
Jerry West can outplay James Harden.
Jerry West can outplay...
Jerry West, he's a silhouette. He's the NBA silhouette. Jerry West can outplay James Harden. Why don't you get him that?
Bye, Stephen A.
I mean,
Bye,
just pick anybody.
On Thursday, the Patriots issued a point-by-point rebuttal of the Wells report, and the key conclusion from the rebuttal reads as follows. This conclusion ignores the scientific explanation for the drop in PSI, ignores obvious issues concerning gauge inconsistency, and is based on adverse inferences from circumstantial evidence, primarily texts sent in October after the Patriots-Jets game, at which footballs were seriously overinflated by the game officials to levels in violation of league rules. The report simply speculates that all the selected texts had to do with improper football deflation after the referee's inspection, although not a single text mentions any such thing. After the NFLPA announced their appeal of Tom Brady's 4-game suspension yesterday, we found out that Roger Goodell will oversee the appeal. Stephen A., it's a revisit, a topic that we talked about earlier today. How do you see this all playing out?
Well, I see a potential reduction in games that as a possibility. It'll either stay at 4 or it'll go at 2. I don't see a complete eradication of the 4-game suspension that Tom Brady had handed down to him. The thing that I find interesting, whether it's Skip or all of these Tom Brady supporters, is, they keep focusing on he is not going for it. He'll fight to the death and blah, blah. Oh, stop, please. Tom Brady's going to fight the fight. In the end, if he has no choice but to stomach a 2-game suspension, what the hell is he going to do? Retire? He ain't going nowhere. He's going to be back playing next season. And whether it's a 4-game suspension, a 2-game suspension, or a 0-game suspension, he is going to sit there and have to accept whatever the ruling is in the end. And unless he retires, which we all know he's not going to do at this juncture, he'll be back. It's not like he's going to sit there and say, well, if they say it's going to be 2 games instead of 4, he's going to say, no, I'm not accepting that, and won't show up. He's going to show up to play, and that's what it is. So we have to keep in perspective what kind of legitimate power he actually has. In the end, the PSIs and the reduction in the football, the deflation, etc., they can make valid arguments. That's their job, to provide a level of plausible deniability. And if it's effective enough, and it may very well work, because this is Roger Goodell in the NFL we're talking about, and they certainly aren't flawless with their investigations. Who knows what could potentially happen? But in the end, having said all of that, the bottom line is that the NFL didn't just suspend him because of the deflated footballs. They part of the suspension contributed to what they termed his lack of cooperation. And because there's a lack of cooperation in their eyes, and that's not something the Patriots are in position to dispute, nor Tom Brady himself, then I still see them coming to the conclusion, best case scenario is that this is your fault, even if the footballs weren't deflated, because you could have helped us better with the investigation and you elected not to. So you deserve a couple of games in our eyes based on that alone. I don't see a complete eradication of this 4-game suspension. A possible reduction, yes, but not a complete eradication.
You're going to be wrong about this.
Okay.
I'm going to predict that at some point, and it may take a while, you're going to have to eat a little public crow over this. I believe these are 2 very proud, very powerful men in Tom Brady and Robert Kraft who have dug in deep on this. They are on a mission. They are not going to back off. The appeals process is just perfunctory. It's just going to, it will happen. Now, maybe, as we debated earlier in the show, I don't know which way Goodell is going to go. Is he going to attack or back off? Maybe he will go out of his way to be overly fair to Tom Brady, to try to reduce some of Brady's anger and resolve in filing a defamation suit against Roger Goodell. That will not work. I don't think it will work to reduce it to 1 game, because 1 game would still mean you're guilty. Tom Brady, I'm going to say it one last time, Tom Brady is telling his confidants, I am 100% innocent. And he is furious over what Roger Goodell has done to his image and reputation. We've talked about it several times on this show. Damaged beyond repair. Permanently stained. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
I just believe it is. I think the Patriots' reputation as the model franchise in the NFL, permanently stained by this. A lot of people will never change their minds. So now you have a Robert Kraft who said at the Super Bowl, he announced, you will owe us an apology, Roger Goodell. And you have a Tom Brady who hired a superstar attorney who's been the biggest thorn in the NFL's side, in Jeffrey Kessler. They are prepared to play this out, however long it's going to take. They are going to go to court. They will after the appeals process, they will file a defamation suit against Roger Goodell. And the first thing they will get, as did Jonathan Vilma, an injunction that will allow Tom Brady to play Game 1 next year. And then we'll see what happens as it plays out in court. I'm telling you, I'm hearing this from insiders. The end game here could be, in their eyes, Goodell's job, because his credibility is back on the line, on the table here. It's up for grabs in their eyes because they think they can shred the Wells report. in court if it comes to that. Now, again, we talked about all the downsides of the lawsuit, and those are points well taken, but Tom Brady has carefully weighed his options. Bob Kraft, no dummy here, one of the shrewdest operators in the league, has weighed his options. They are coming after the commissioner. That's the end game here. Just wait and see.
I love how you're talking about it like it's news. We all knew Tom Brady was going to come out like this. There's no question.
Oh, you knew it.
You can't have your integrity questioned like that, and you're not going to do anything.
Guilty.
Of course he's going to come at them. Robert Kraft.
You don't want to sue people when you're guilty. The truth will come out.
Really?
Yeah.
In what world have you been living in? There's plenty. How many instances? Skip, you have reported for decades dudes standing up firm and defiant, and they were lying through their teeth. What are you talking about? That's the
Not Tom Brady.
Like the American way.
No, you can't get away
Tom
with it.
Brady.
No.
See what I'm saying?
You can't re-risk your reputation. He's really going to go down in flames if he lost a lawsuit. Hey. Trust me, he's putting everything on the line.
Really go down in flames? How can he go any lower? He's been labeled a cheater and a liar.
Mm-hmm.
How can you go any lower?
He is going to make you eat your words. That's his goal in life right now, to make you eat your words.
Stephen A.
Yes, Stephen A. Smith will eat his words.
Skip. There is nothing on this planet Earth that Tom Brady can say to convince me of his word.
There you go.
That he knew nothing about deflated footballs. I don't think this is that big of a deal. I personally believed it was much ado about nothing. But you cannot convince me that the quarterback didn't know that the footballs were deflated. And it may not have been deflated above the line. I get all of that. He said, I don't know what y'all talking about. Had he said, sure, the footballs are deflated.
I'm going to ask you this one
That's the way
last time.
I like it.
Last time.
It's not a big deal.
It's not possible in your eyes that Tom Brady simply told his equipment people, I like them on the lower end of regulation. And that's the last thing he said to anybody.
And I specifically told you for the 5th time. I agree with that. How many times do I have to repeat? I get that.
So he's not
agree
a cheater.
With it.
Oh.
I agree.
He's exonerated.
No, what I'm saying. Forget it. You're not listening.
I'm
Because it's Tom Brady. So you can't hear. Because it's Tom Brady.
Yikes.
If this was anybody else, you listen. But because it's Tom Brady, you can't hear me.
You're being objective.
5 times I have said to you in the past week, I totally agree that's possible. But that's not what he said when he had his press conference.
Who cares
I don't know what you're talking
said?
about. That's where he lost me. That's where he lost me.
He was talking in court under
But
oath.
you said me.
Under
You said
oath.
me. You said, again,
Oh,
you don't want to listen? You said me. I will eat my words. And my words are not about the report. It's about Tom Brady saying, oh, I know nothing. I don't know about the football being played. I don't know what you're talking about. Felt fine to me. That's my issue with him. That he acted as if he knew nothing. He acted as if he knew that the footballs weren't even deflated. That is what I don't believe. I don't believe the suspension. I don't care about all of this.
Now you're
Bring
trying
it
to
back
escape
on.
on a technicality.
Let him defend his Super Bowl crown. But don't tell me that the footballs were deflated and you had no clue that the footballs were deflated. I don't believe that. There is nothing that the report, there is nothing that a lawsuit, there is nothing that a press conference or anybody else can say that's going to convince me he did not know the football
we got
were deflated.
semantics going on here.
That's all.
You inflate them to the lower level of regulation, or you take a needle and you let air out of them and deflate them to under regulation. So all I'm saying is, he just said once about, like maybe when he was a rookie, maybe in 2001, he said, I just like them at the lower end of regulation. So they pump them up to right there. That's okay.
And I'm saying he never said that when I watched him speak on the issue. He said, I don't know what y'all talking about. That is what I don't believe. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So I'm not going to eat my words because that's what I have a problem with Tom Brady.
Do you believe
Nothing
he's
else.
innocent as charged? Do you think that he oversaw the deflating of footballs to under regulation limits?
I don't know that. I just know that he knew that the footballs were somewhat deflated, and he tried to act like he didn't know anything. That's my issue with him. Period.
Somewhat deflated or inflated to the low end of regulation.
You be technical all you want to because that's your boy, and you want to defend him. I'm telling you, I don't believe him because of what I heard him say.
All
That's
right.
it.
Gentlemen, let's move on, shall we?
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
Throw to the plate, safe at the plate!
right through the World Series.
For the third time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Clippers could not close out their series against the Rockets last night, so now it's back to Houston for a Game 7. Going into the fourth quarter, the Rockets were down by 13, but pulled off a serious comeback and won the game, 119-107. Stephen A., who wins Game 7?
It's almost impossible to pick right now because I couldn't even recognize the Clippers last night. To be quite honest with you, I'm still shell-shocked by what happened to them. But this is a Game 7. They've got all the odds stacked against them. Houston is almost virtually playing with house money from the perspective that they climbed back from a 3-1 deficit and pushed this to a 7-game series. So they've really made amends for 2 blowout losses at the hands of the Clippers in Games 3 and 4. But I'm going to go with the Clippers to win Game 7 on the road in Houston Sunday afternoon. I'm going to stick with my pick. I originally thought the Clippers would beat Houston in 6. It's now 7 games. I know Houston can beat them. They've made believers out of me. When they're hitting those threes the way they hit them last night, they can beat anybody, especially when Dwight Howard is the rebounding demon, even though he's absolutely horrific from the free throw line. I think at one point last night, he was like 26 of 69, Skip, from the free throw line. That's about 37%, which was god-awful. Okay, that's worse than DeAndre Jordan.
Yep.
But in the end, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to say the Clippers' backs are against the wall. They showed me something against the San Antonio Spurs, who I don't believe the Houston Rockets to be. Their reputation, Doc Rivers, listen, we hold him in the highest regard. This will not look good for him if he loses this game. I don't think Chris Paul is at fault at all, but it will not look good for him if he loses this series. It's certainly not going to look good for Blake Griffin. The odds are big time stacked against them more than at any other time this year. And all of the work, the hard work that they put forth with Doc Rivers arriving in L.A., with him having the banners of the Lakers, the championship banners covered over, not seeing any semblance of the Lakers in Staples Center when the Clippers games are going on, to all the other changes that were made, to the new billionaire owner, Steve Ballmer, and coming for L.A. the way that he is. I can't even tell you how much is on the line with this particular game. The Clippers are under immense pressure. They have got to win this game. Otherwise, they're going to be mentioned. Even the Clippers of old, Skip Bayless, never lost something like this. As horrible and as moribund as they were, it was never like this, where you're on the precipice of advancing to the Western Conference Finals for the first time and you blow this. It would take them years to overcome this. Skip Bayless, I'm going to put my money on them because their backs are against the wall. I know what kind of heart Doc Rivers has. I know what kind of heart Chris Paul has. I hope that Blake Griffin has one. He's got to show up.
Yep.
Houston can beat them. My apologies to the Houston Rockets. I totally slept on them. I was wrong. Period. McHale deserves credit. Dwight Howard deserves credit. Josh Smith, Corey Brewer, Jason Terry and them deserve credit. Even James Harden, even though he didn't play in the fourth quarter, obviously he was a league MVP candidate. It hurt me not to give it to him. I mean, even he deserves credit. But in the end, I'm going to go with the Clippers. Call it heart over mind or whatever. I just think that they have to win this game to have a decent future for years to come, rather than being looked at as the second-class citizens that they have been believed to have been all of these years. They cannot lose Game 7 on Sunday. And I'm going to pick the Clippers to win this game.
I'm going back and forth, and I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with the Clippers. In the end, as much as I want to go Rockets, push comes to shove, I actually trust the Clippers even more than I trust the Rockets in a Game 7. I've never been the biggest fan of this Rockets team, and it is killing my heart right now that my Spurs are not able to sweep the Rockets, because I believe they would have swept the Rockets. So now the Rockets get a Game 7 at home. But I look at what the Clippers have done and what they did to my Spurs. They won Game 4 at San Antonio, and they went back and won Game 6 at San Antonio. And then they went right to Houston with no Chris Paul, and they won Game 1. Miraculous. Maybe the Rockets took them too lightly. Remember, Blake Griffin had the triple-double that first game, 13 assists. Everybody scored. Austin Rivers scored 17, and even Matt Barnes had 20. Everybody. It was a tour de force with no Chris Paul. But it showed me a lot, I thought, about who the Clippers have become. I thought from the start of the Spurs series that this playoffs is going to be about the arrival of Chris Paul as a true superstar. And Stephen A., I will go to my grave saying the game he played against my Spurs in Game 7 back at the Clippers was all-time special, coming off that pulled hamstring or strained hamstring, whatever it was. And you can argue maybe the strained hamstring took a little pressure off Chris, that he could just say, okay, I'm just going to let it fly here, and it won't really matter what happens. But that shot he made over Tim Duncan to win that game, it was just all-time great. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. So I'm going to say he'll reach down and pull it off again. I'm not sure how Blake will play. Maybe Doc will have to resort to hack a Dwight and hack a Josh Smith. It may come down to that. It's going to be a wild shootout on Sunday afternoon at 3:30 Eastern, and I'm going to go 105-103 visiting.
All right, Skip and Stephen A. are both saying that they feel like the Clippers will be able to get it done in Game 7. That's in Houston. We shall see. Obviously discussing it Monday on the show. A former Dallas receiver and Hall of Famer, Michael Irvin, isn't picking his Cowboys to win the division this year. Instead, he recently said that Philly is the favorite in the NFC East and that no running backs can live up to DeMarco Murray.
Philly is the favorite in the NFC East. I have to be able to. It is a difficult thing to separate my head from my heart. I mean, you cannot tell me and you can't convince me that you could just pick anybody back there. And if they had drafted a Melvin Gordon or had drafted a Gurley, then I'm saying, wait a minute. We got it. The same may be something. But with Darren McFadden, and maybe he'll have some great things going, but right now, I will take Philly and then Dallas.
Jerry Jones, however, disagrees. When you say the entire running game, and that would be including our tight ends, including fullbacks, the entire game, we're better. Jerry Jones saying they're better than they were last year. Skip Bayless, whose side are you on?
Stephen A. Smith, I'm on Jerry Jones' side here. And I'm going to pull a Stephen A., and I'm going to say I love Michael Irvin, and I do. I know him well. I have sort of a kindred spirit with his, and I believe he's the best receiver who ever played the game. But he's out of bounds here. He needs to calm down and let this go, because it is blasphemy for Michael Irvin, living in Dallas, Texas, to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East. We know, Michael, that DeMarco Murray he's a great teammate, a leader, and a very fine running back. But Chip Kelly dramatically overpaid for a DeMarco Murray who took a beating as he led this league in rushing last year. I'm sorry, but the Cowboys still have the best, by far, offensive line in football, and have added, or stolen, I think, a Lyle Collins to that mix, a guy who should have been a first-round draft choice. So, again, Darren McFadden, Ryan Williams, Joseph Randle, Lance Dunbar, if you have to do it by committee, that's a pretty good committee. And I think it will be good enough to win the NFC East Come on, Michael, give it a rest.
Skip Bayless, I'm inclined to agree with you. Listen, I think that losing DeMarco Murray was not a wise move on a part of the Dallas Cowboys, but to sit there and to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be there and be better than them. Jeremy Macklin's gone. LaShawn McCoy is gone. Yes, you got DeMarco Murray, who's a north and south runner, and that's supposedly good for Chip Kelly's system. We'll see. Your two wideouts are Jordan Matthews and Riley Cooper, and we don't know who else you have at this particular juncture. There are questions at the quarterback spot in Philadelphia because if you wanted to move up so desperately to grab Marcus Mariota, what does that say about Sam Bradford? Okay, and then you got the Mark Sanchez and the Tim Tebows of the world. Give me a break. In the end, the fact is that the Dallas Cowboys, particularly considering some of the moves that they made on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's safe to surmise that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be just as good, albeit for probably different reasons than they were last season. And I definitely think that they should be the favorites to win the NFC East, which would mean being better than the Philadelphia Eagles. If anybody's going to be an elite threat to them off the tap, it would be the New York Giants. Victor Cruz is returning. He's supposed to be healthy. You've got Ruben Randle, and obviously Odell Beckham Jr., the Rookie of the Year, is must-see. He's just the eyeballs gravitate to him. So they've got an elite passing attack. Presumably, their running game needs something to be desired. They're trying to work on their offensive line, and their defense, as you acknowledge, wasn't as bad as everybody was saying. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, the Giants are a legitimate threat to the Dallas Cowboys, more so than the Philadelphia Eagles. I think Michael Irvin knows that. I just think that his heart was so much with DeMarco Murray that, you know, he's not entirely objective with all of this. And I understand it. It's not a big deal. But it is what it is.
And I agree with you. As a Cowboy fan, biggest threat to my Cowboys, your Giants. I'm looking at Philly as maybe an 8-8. I'll give you at best a 9-7 kind of football team. Unless, of course, Tim Tebow starts at quarterback and then all bets are off. Then maybe they would win the East. I don't know.
He's joined Twitter, guys. His very first tweet, like his number on his jersey, 9. It is Tony Romo we're talking about. So now we're here, and we wanted to know, Bayless, you have, as you pointed out, over 1 million followers, but you follow no
way
one.
Over 1 million. I got 1.64.
Make sure
you know what happened today, Carrie? I walked into our morning meeting, and I heard the man in charge of our social media for First Take, Marcus Matthews, point out that Tony Romo has joined Twitter, and I thought to myself, I follow nobody. But because Tony Romo was so great last year that he made my man and my friend Stephen A. Smith wear a Tony Romo jersey for an entire show of First Take because he lost a bet to me. Thank you, Tony. I owe you this one. I decided I'm going to follow one person in this world. It's going to be Tony Romo. Thank you so much. So bear with me because I've never done this before.
All right, kid.
You ready for this?
We're ready.
I'm on his site.
Yes.
Got the cursor on follow.
Yep, I'm watching.
I'm going to click. You ready?
I'm ready.
Click.
Da-da-da-da.
Following. Boom.
Well, there you
Boom. It happened. I'm following Tony Romo, and it feels so good. You know what, Stephen A.? It feels right. It feels like something I probably should have done a long time ago.
Look at his face.
Thank you, Tony, for making my man Stephen A. Smith wear that jersey. But, hey, Tony, your first interception, I just might have to unfollow.
Yeah, or block. You might block him. I think he might follow you back. We have to wait and see. Breaking news.
Your reaction.
He wants you to follow him.
Tony A. Smith.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
You know what?
What's wrong, Boo?
I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even want to talk to you. I mean, you know, this stinks on a multitude of levels. Number one, first of all, you're following a cowboy. Number two, you used as a source of inspiration the bet that I lost where I had to wear his jersey and a cowboy hat on my birthday.
On your birthday.
And you expect me to sit up here and want to talk to you about this? Skip Bayless, I never said this to you before. You can kick rocks. You can kick rocks.
I
Skip Bayless. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk to you right now. I mean, what a Benedict Arnold. What a Benedict Arnold you are. This might be one of the lowest blows you've ever thrown at me.
Stephen
This
A.
is really bad.
Time out. Go ahead and follow him.
I'm following one.
Follow your friend.
No, Tony Romo.
You know what?
Wait, Tony Romo and Stephen A. Smith don't belong in the same sentence.
I might follow Tony Romo, too, just to mess with him and you communicating with one another. I might do it just for that purpose.
Wait, does this
mean let me get 2 follows. Let me see if I can follow Tony Romo. You know what I mean?
I don't know how this works
Why
because
not?
I've never followed anybody. Does this mean that Tony and I can DM each
If
other?
he follows you back, you guys can have private conversations.
We could like exchange private messages.
Follow LeBron while you're at it.
No.
Apologize.
Tony Romo.
It's time for me to go.
Don't put
Time for me
LeBron
to
James
go.
and Tony Romo in the same sentence.
Oh, you're right. That's right. LeBron's got 2 titles.
does not belong
What
in
does
the
Romo have?
Tony Romo was clutch at Green Bay. That was a catch. You know it, and I know it. The Cowboys should have
2
been in the
playoff
Super Bowl.
victories in his
They would
career.
have won at
2.
Seattle. You know it, and I know it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.